People think that you develop aches, pains, and injuries in your lower body because of aging. But the truth is, the reason why your feet, ankles, knees, hips, and even lower back hurt is not because of your age, but it's because of how you move your body. And when you learn to move your body better, you feel better in your body. So welcome to today's Masterclass. We're so excited you're here. Let's get started. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Lower Body Fix Masterclass. I am so excited that everyone is here right now. I want to give everybody just a minute to join the live feed. Now, this is a live event that's happening today on Wednesday, January 24th. And the goal of this live event is to give you the tools you need to fix any aches, pains, injuries, tightness, or weakness in your lower body, all the way up to your lower back, to help you feel significantly better in your body again. So we're gonna be live for at least an hour, where I'm gonna go through moves for your feet, your ankles, your knees, your hips, and your lower back. I'm even gonna give you my 2 favorite moves at the very end, as well as some variations each move that you can take home with you to do in a workout from home to help you feel significantly better in your lower body. Now, the first thing I want to cover right now is what we're going to do. Okay, so we have this whiteboard up here. I want to walk through all the things that you're going to learn in this video. Okay, first, we're going to cover the feet and the ankles. All right, and we're going to focus on how to care for your feet, the 3 best toe stretches, how to activate your arches and your toes, which is really important, the 4 best ankle stretches, and the best ankle and foot move to create strength and flexibility at the same time. So we're gonna go through all of those different movements. I'm gonna show you how to do everything with good form. And if you have any pain in your lower body, it's always good to start at the floor and work your way up. So if you have any issues with your feet or your ankles, please start with these movements, okay? The next thing is we're gonna focus on the knees. I'm going to start by covering something I call the 3 keys to healthy knees. This is something that a lot of people mistake, and there's a lot of people who have knee pain out there that shouldn't have knee pain, but they ignore these 3 keys to healthy knees. So I'm going to share those with you. We're also going to go over how to increase knee range of motion. So 3 stretches for that. And what I mean by that is, can you bend your knees all the way? Can you drop into a squat? If not, well, I'm going to show you some stretches to help you get there to restore that range of motion back to your knees. We're also going to talk about this muscle called the tibs and how you should not neglect your tibs. I'll talk on that more in a few. And then also how to activate your quads. Like, one of the most common things that happens to people is they injure their knees and they end up losing their mind muscle connection to their quads. And that can cause a lot of pain, because if the quads don't work properly, they can't support the knees properly. Then we're going to the hips, okay? And we're going to focus on 3 of my favorite hip stretches to create hip mobility in all the planes of motion, as well as how to activate your glutes the right way to actually have your glutes functioning properly, which helps support the entire lower leg and the lower back. And then we're going to go to the lower back. And we're going to focus on the causes of lower back pain, how to activate your core properly, which is something that almost everybody does wrong, how to fix these two causes that we just talked about there, and then also the #1 way people injure their lower back, and then how to move through your body so that you don't end up injuring through your lower back. And like I said at the very end, we're going to go over the 2 best moves for your lower body as well, and I'll give you some variations to make sure that you have everything that you need. So before we get started, I just want you guys to know that the reason why we started WeShape in the first place is because we saw a need for this in the fitness industry, right? So many workout programs out there basically focus on how much you can pump your muscles or how hard can you do cardios, your heart rate, and burn calories, right? There's not a lot of workouts out there that are focused on teaching you how to move your body better so that you feel better in your body. And that's what we're all about at WeShape, is teaching you how to move your body better so that you feel better in your body, giving you the biomechanical cues that you need to learn in order to be able to move your body better, okay? So that's what this video is going to be all about, is helping you connect with your body, helping you learn how to care for your body. And remember this too, most workout programs try to get you to do them by creating self-judgment. They say, you want to change the way you look, you shouldn't feel worthy, so you should show up and do our workout program because you feel bad about yourself, so you can lose weight and you can finally get the validation and praise you want by losing all that weight. We don't do that at WeShape. That's not our focus. Instead, we think that's a toxic weight loss mindset. We want to get you out of that mindset because that's why people take 1 step forward and then go 1 step backwards, because all of that motivation is rooted in fear and self-judgment. Instead, at WeShape, beyond just trying to teach you how to move your body better and connect with your body, we want to teach you that the purpose of working out is to care for your body because you appreciate your body, because you feel like you are worth it, okay? And I want to say something else too. If you have been struggling with aches and pains in your lower body for a long time, then know that this is not happening because of your age and because of these types of things. Instead, it's happening because you don't know how to move your body the way it was meant to move, okay? And I know this firsthand. I've had 5 knee surgeries now. I've torn my ACL on the right side 3 different times, right? So I've had to go through a lot of rehabilitation. I've had to learn a lot about how to move my body in ways that didn't end up injuring my body. And so that's what I'm hoping to teach you today, is all the wisdom I've learned over the last 20 years of training people in my offline courses and now in this online community that we have of WeShape, of helping people learn to move their bodies better so they can feel better in their bodies, all right? So today, let's get started. Let's dive right in, and we're going to start with the feet. What I want you to do in this video is not take notes across every little thing that I focus on. Instead, start at the feet and the ankles. And if there's anything in the feet and ankles that you don't feel like is working for you, you don't feel like you have the active control over that, then work on that. Just work on that. Focus on that one thing. Then move on to the knees. And if there's things in the knees that you need to work on, pick one thing from there. And the hips and the lower back, et cetera, et cetera. Pick 2 or 3 things that you should work on. Don't pick everything, right? And focus on mastering those things, because if you master those little things, they start to build on each other. And you'll see what I mean as we go through this masterclass, all right? So you can take notes and pay attention, but the most important notes you can take are which movements you think will help you the most. And the last thing I want to say before we get started is this. At WeShape, I don't want to be your guru, okay? I want to teach you how to be your own guru. And that means all of the movements here that we're going to suggest to you are movements that we're suggesting to you. Try them out, but listen to your body. Connect with your healthcare provider and ask them what they think about these moves, right? Listen to your body and decide, this one made me feel good. This one didn't feel so good. And become your own guru. Use this information to find the moves that feel like the right fit for you. All right, so thank you guys again for joining. Are you guys ready? Give me like a thumbs up, give me a like on this video, and we will get this train on the road, okay? So the first thing we're gonna talk about is your feet. And we're gonna focus on something really basic in the beginning, because some of these moves are gonna be things that you're like, oh, I totally get that. Some of these things are gonna be like, whoa, I've never seen that before. But the first thing is in caring for your feet. Now, a lot of people have foot pain because they stick their feet in these tight shoes and their shoes get clumped up like this. Their toes get all clumped together for a really long time. And so they end up with like lots of adhesions, lack of flexibility in their feet. So right now, I want to show you how to care for your feet, and then I want to show you how to stretch your feet at the same time, okay? The first thing to do to care for your feet is this. We have the ability to do self-massage on our feet anytime we want. And one of my favorite ways to do self-massage is to use a spoon and a little bit of lotion. So I'm going to show you that technique right now, okay? So you put a little bit of lotion on the back of a spoon. you cross your foot over your knee like this. And all you're going to do is rub a little bit of lotion on the bottom of your foot across the arches and everything. And then we're going to turn the spoon to the side where the blade of the spoon is, right? And we're just going to kind of scrape downward like this across the arch of the foot and down into the heel, okay? So just cross the arch of the foot, down into the heel like this, just a little bit up, a little bit down. It shouldn't be crazy painful. What we're doing is we're removing adhesions from the fascia in the foot, creating more flexibility inside the foot. And what you can do even deeper is you can take the tip of the spoon and between your toes, you can kind of work between the toes into that tissue. Work between the toes into that tissue. You're trying to create space in between the toes in that tissue, okay? And you can do this every night for a few minutes just to create more space. And the big thing you want to focus on is listening to your body, okay? So you want to focus on, did this make your body feel better? If it did, great. Keep doing it. It's helping you loosen up that tissue, create more flexibility, and it's going to be helpful for the next move I'm about to show you. But from there, you're going to want to listen to your body. Some people might do this, and it might cause inflammation, and it might not feel good. So if you have things like plantar fasciitis, or if you have aches and pains in your foot, just be patient, go slow, because it's really important for you to listen to your body and understand when something feels good versus when something feels bad, okay? So you can do that with a spoon. You can also just grab your foot, rub your foot out, find the areas that feel tight anytime you want to rub your foot. And if you have somebody around you, a partner or a spouse, you can also do foot rub trades with them. That's a fantastic thing to do. Remember, our feet carry us all day long. They carry us all day long, and we never treat them right. So just take a moment each day to treat them right if you have issues with your feet, all right? I promise it will pay dividends by doing this, okay? Now from there, if you have tight toes, so what does that mean? If your toes are scrunched together like this, meaning your big toes push to the side, maybe you have a condition that's called bunions, right? Maybe the pinky toes squish to the side like this. If your toes are squished together, then it's really important that you recreate mobility in your feet. So I'm gonna show you how to do that, okay? 3 different stretches for your toes. First, we're gonna take each toe and we're gonna lift it upward like this, okay? So the toe's gonna stretch upward like this. And then once we feel like a nice stretch in there, maybe 10 seconds, 20 seconds, we're gonna stretch the toe downward like this, all right? And we're gonna do that for each digit of our foot, one at a time. That toe goes up, that toe goes down, right? So these are 2 different stretches. There's an extensor stretch and there's a flexor stretch, going back and forth like this. You might have them pop and crack too, that's all right. But holding for about 10 seconds each direction and trying to move that toe as far up and as far down as you can, all the way into your pinky toe, fantastic stretches, okay? Now, the next thing, one of the #1 problems that people have when they put their feet in these shoes is their feet get squished together like I talked about, right? You take your feet out of your shoes and they look like this. So we need to create lateral flexibility of the feet, okay? And so how do we do that? Well, my favorite way to do this is you take your pinky and you put it between your pinky toe and your ring toe. Then you take your next finger and you take your next finger and you take your next finger and you create space between your toes like this. Now, if you're comfortable enough to cross your knee over your foot like this, or over your foot over your knee like this, you can put your fingers between those toes and you can relax like this for 10 minutes at night. And it's going to create that lateral mobility you need in your toes to be able to use your feet the way they were supposed to be used. Now, if it's too hard for you to bring your foot up this high, or you want to just try something a little bit simpler, you know what you can do? You can go on Amazon and you can order toe spacers, right? You can just type in toe spacers, and for a few bucks, you'll get these toe spacers. These are the type of things that you would put in between your toes when you go to get a pedicure, and they keep your toes splayed out like that. Put those in 10, 20, 30 minutes while you just relax at night, and that's gonna help create that lateral mobility so that you can spread your toes and start to use your feet the way that your feet were meant to be used. Because remember, your feet are the foundation of all of this. If your feet are not active, if your arches are not active, then sometimes the knee pain and the hip pain and the lower back pain can come from not having active feet. So make sure you care for your feet and make sure you stretch your feet. Now, this next one is going to be a drill that I want people to practice if you feel like you don't have good strength in your feet or in your arches. And an easy way to think about this is, can you balance on one foot? If you can balance on one foot for a minute and it's no problem, and you feel like you have nice, strong feet, then you probably don't need this drill. But if you can't balance very well, and if you can't feel your arches working when you're standing on that one foot or when you're trying to stand on one foot, then this is the movement for you, because it's going to strengthen your arches and strengthen your toes. And I got to be honest, my team set up a really cool rig here. So we're going to go over to this cool rig where you guys can see underneath the foot so you can actually see what I'm doing here. So I'm going to start out by putting my foot on top of this plate right here. So check this out. My toes are squished together like this, all right? That's what most people's feet look like. And then you can see how my foot is really pressed into this glass right here, okay? So from there, what we want to focus on is being able to create space between the toes, all right? So my foot's pushed down, I want to create space between the toes. So how do I do that? First, I spread my toes by reaching my pinky and my big toe out. Now at first, when you do that, it might just be like this. It might be like partially there. It might not do very much, all right? We want to be able to spread the toes as wide as possible and then push the toes down and grab the ground with the toes. You can see how I'm grabbing the ground with my toes. You'll see them pushing harder in there. As I do that, what you want to do is almost think about rolling the ankle to the outside, but really what I'm trying to focus on is taking the big toe, the ball of the big toe right here, and squeezing it as close to the heel as possible. So this is me with a more flat foot. This is me with a more active arch. Sometimes it's helpful as you do this to lift your toes up and then put the toes down and then squeeze everything at the same time. And so the way you do this drill is you put your foot flat, you squeeze the arch, you put your toes down, and then you squeeze and hold for a couple seconds, and then you just relax. And then you put your foot down, you activate the arch, you squeeze your toes down, you hold for a few seconds, and then you relax, okay? I'm gonna show you guys again over here, just in case we didn't get a perfect shot of that, because this is a really important drill for most people. So again, put your foot flat down on the ground. Then we're gonna do this, activate the arch. We're activating the arch by pulling this side of the big toe pad towards the heel, like this. See this little tiny bit of a movement? That's all the movement we need right there. I could do it on this side too for a better shot. So this is a flat foot, pulling that big toe side towards the heel and creating a nice arch, okay? Toes go up, then we grip the ground with the toes and we hold for a few seconds and then we relax, okay? So that's how we start to work on activating our toes, activating our arches, which is ultimately gonna help our feet feel significantly better, okay? Now, how do you practice this drill? Well, just like the care for your feet and the toe stretches, my recommendation is if you have issues with your feet and you know your toes and your arches aren't very active, then what you should do is this. Wake up in the morning, sit to the edge of your bed, put your feet on the ground, and practice for 1 minute on the right foot and 1 minute on the left foot. And then, right before you go to bed, sit down on your bed, practice for 1 minute on the right foot, 1 minute on the left foot, and just repeat that every single day, twice a day, until you have active control over your feet. And remember that this is you strengthening your mind-muscle connection, okay? So this isn't necessarily gonna be something where you feel this big pump in those muscles. You'll probably feel some fatigue in there, but if you can't do it at first, keep practicing it. When we're working on strengthening neurological connections with things like our arches and our toes, it can take a lot of time to get that neurological connection rebuilt because you've essentially forgotten how to do that movement. So practice it every day, ideally twice a day, and watch as that arch comes alive, as the toes come alive. And when that happens, your feet feel better, it's easier to walk, it's easier to do so many different things in your daily life, and oftentimes other aches and pains in your lower body, all the way up to your lower back, start to go away as well, okay? So if you have feet issues, then I want you to focus on those 3 things. Care for your feet, 3 toe stretches, activate your arches, all right? Now let's talk about your ankles, okay? Because ankles really need a lot of strength and they need a lot of flexibility. So I'm gonna show you 4 of my favorite ankle stretches that you can do, okay? I'm gonna start by doing them in a chair so that you guys can see a beginner variation. Then I'm gonna stand up and I'm gonna show you how to do them from a standing position too, so we can apply a little bit more resistance. Because one of the most important things that we do at WeShape is teach people how to have flexibility and strength at the same time. I'll give you a great example, okay? If you're walking and you start to roll your ankle to the side like this is the most common way that people roll their ankles. They step down and their ankle rolls out like this. If you have no flexibility and no strength here, what happens? You hurt your ankle, right? It ends up getting really hurt and you end up with, muscle tears, sometimes ligament tears and things like that. But if you gradually build flexibility, meaning you have the ability to come to the side like this, and you build strength, meaning you have the ability to put pressure on the side of your ankle like this, then you can roll your ankle to the outside and it's not a big deal, okay? Because you've built resilience in ranges of motion that your body isn't used to doing. And so some of these stretches are not only gonna build flexibility, but they're also gonna build that resilience at the same time, okay? So to start out with, we're gonna go for a lateral stretch on both sides, okay? So that's the first 2 stretches. So I want you to start by taking your foot and turning it inward a little bit like this. And then you're gonna roll to the outside of the foot as far as you can, and then roll back. And that's it. This is a lateral stretch to the outside, okay? We're just rolling the ankle to the outside and back. At first, I want you to barely put any weight on it, and we're focusing primarily on flexibility, okay? After a while, you can start to push down into your foot more, and it'll start to create more strength in that range of motion at the same time. And one more key fact here is as you go to the side, you want to just kind of push your knee out and push your ankle towards the ground. As you come back up, I want you to do this. I want you to actively turn your ankle. You're actively turning your ankle. So I'm not using my adductors to bring my knee up. I'm using the outside of my foot to bring the knee up. I'm trying to feel these muscles here working to bring my body back up to an upright level. So we come down for the flexibility, up to create strength and stability in that flexibility, okay? So you can practice this movement, again, for 30 to 60 seconds on the right, 30 to 60 seconds on the left, and you can do this one every single day. But again, listen to your body. If it agitates any injuries or stuff like that, take it easier, do a little bit less, and treat your body nicely, okay? So that's stretch number one. Stretch number two is going to be a lateral movement, but to the inside. Now, a real important point here, for some people with knee pain, this could cause some knee pain. So be minimal with the range of motion if you have knee pain, and don't go further than you feel 100% comfortable, okay? But we're trying to build the opposite. So first we rolled the ankle to the outside. Now we're gonna roll the ankle to the inside, okay? So you're gonna turn your toes slightly outward. And then what you're gonna do is try to roll inward towards your big toe, okay? You're not gonna have as much range of motion here as you will to the outside, but that's okay. Same thing, we're gonna push back to the start by pushing our foot this way. We're gonna actively push our foot this way. So come down and then push that big toe into the ground and bring that knee back out. And the same thing, just coming back and forth like this. And again, if the knee hurts, especially in the medial side or the lateral side of your knee, then only come a little bit in like this and a little bit out. Don't go into ranges of motion that cause pain, right? We want to build this resilience to being able to let the ankle collapse inward as well as outward at the same time, okay? So again, same thing. If you have really tight ankles, doing these stretches for 30 to 60 seconds each is going to make a huge difference on making your ankles feel better. Now I got another one that's a little bit more traditional for you, okay? This is going to be strengthening or stretching the ankles in this forward range of motion. So in this range of motion, I want you to put your foot flat like this, okay? And then all I want you to do is bring your knee as far forward over your toes as you can while keeping your heel flat on the ground and then coming back, right? So just going forward and back, just like that. And we're trying to do this while creating length on the back of the ankle, keeping the heel glued to the ground. And as we come backwards, I want you to actively push your toes into the ground to push your body backwards, right? So we're pushing the toes into the ground to push the body backwards as you come back and forth through the ankle this way. So this is going to stretch both the calf and the ankle capsule, giving you more range of motion of your ability to bring your knee over your toe with your heel flat on the ground. That's really important, and it's going to make the ankles feel a whole lot better. Now I got one more stretch for you. This one's a strange one. This is an ankle stretch, but it's really, really good for the tops of the feet and creating a lot less pressure if you ever get like pinches and nerve pain in the tops of your feet right here. So this one is called the toe knuckle stretch. So coming up on top of your toe knuckles like this, gently. If you need to put a pillow or something soft down, that's totally fine. And then all you're going to do is the same thing. Bring your ankles far forward as you can, and then push up and bring it back down. You're just going to roll it forward and back down. And we're trying to get that stretch in the fully flexed toe position while we're building strength and resilience through the ankles right here, okay? So again, 4 stretches. We're going to go to the outside, to the inside, forward with the heel glued to the ground, and then toe knuckles, right? If you do this 30 seconds each on each side, that's a 4-minute routine to loosen up your ankles. And if you do that every day, I'll bet you anything within 2 weeks, your ankles are going to feel significantly looser. And if you apply that strength as you do these movements, they'll feel stronger at the same time too, which will feel amazing. Now, a simple progression here is for you to do this from a standing position. So I'm going to go to a standing position and show you how to modify these and make it more of a standing stretch. All right. Starting with the sideways, the lateral movement, you can literally just do the same thing and just put your more body weight on it. So from a standing position, we can start to put more body weight on it. And eventually we can work up to like a lot of body weight being on it, to the point where most of my body weight, I'm barely holding anything here. It's all on the outside of my ankle as I'm stretching it from side to side. Again, same amount of time, 30 to 60 seconds max, and just trying to get that range of motion in that lateral ankle movement. Now, toes to the outside, same thing, to the inside. Now, you're not going to be able to put as much body pressure on this one because it's going to put a little bit of torque on the knee. Again, only go as far as you feel 100% comfortable, but over time, you can start to build more strength by driving that big toe into the ground to bring you back to that starting position as you go back and forth through that ankle stretch, okay? Now, if we turn to the side, we want to get this knee in front of the toe with the back heel glued to the ground. We glue that back heel to the ground. We bend this knee, soft bend, and then we just bring it forward and back by pushing the toes. Forward and back. Forward. Don't let the heel come up. And back. And the goal is, how far can we get our knee over our toes? The further this is over our toes, the more ankle mobility we have, the less likelihood we have of actually injuring our ankles, okay? And the final one is the toe knuckle stretch. So just like the other one, bringing it up on your toes like this, putting pressure on there, bringing your ankle forward and back, and learning how to get more strength in the tops of your ankles as well as on the tops of your toes, and making sure you get both sides, okay? So those are my favorite ankle stretches. And if you do them consistently, again, it could be a 4-minute routine. If you just do 30 seconds on all 4 on each side every single day, that could absolutely change your life. It makes your ankles feel significantly better. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna focus on with the ankles is the best ankle and foot move, all right? So best ankle and foot move out there. This is something you can do anytime, anywhere. So a lot of the things that we like to do at WeShape are trying to give you these simple movements. We like to call these movement snacks, by the way. So just like when you're walking around your house and you're between meals, you're like, let me get a snack real quick, and you eat a snack, right? So instead of thinking that you can only move your body and care for your body by doing workouts, right? Instead of doing that, you can actually do this through movement snacks, okay? And movement snacks are just little moves you can do throughout the day to care for your body and feel better in your body. So this move right here is something you can do all the time. You can do this every single day. You can do it while sitting in a chair, on the couch. You can do it in bed, etc. And it's fantastic for your ankles. It's also helpful. This is a big one for me. You know, I've got some arthritis in my knees after all those surgeries and whatnot. And sometimes when you sit for a long period of time, you go to stand up, you can be really stiff. So if you have stiffness in your ankles or your knees, this is a fantastic thing to do for 30 seconds before you stand up and start walking to really prime that area of your body, okay? So here's what it looks like. You're just sitting in a chair. You can do this sitting in a chair. You can even do this lying in bed with your feet straight forward. But you're going to do is this. You're going to lift your toes to your nose, and you're going to squeeze these muscles right here on the front sides of your shins, and then you're going to push your toes in the ground. You're just going to go like this, back and forth. Toes to nose, toes to the ground. That's it. Really simple. But every time what we want to do is we want to try to get more range of motion. So higher with the toes and push the toes down even more, right? As much range of motion as possible. Now, if you do this throughout the day, you're going to build so much more strength and flexibility in your ankles. You're going to build way more mind-muscle connection with the muscles in your lower leg that often support your knee and make your knees feel significantly better. You're also going to bring healing blood flow down to that area, which is really valuable for people who have things like plantar fasciitis or tendonitis in those different areas of the lower limbs, right? So just doing this simple calf rock can be a game changer for you. And again, feel free to do it a lot throughout the day. Do it 3 times a day. Do it whenever you're about to stand up. And it's going to start to build that strength and flexibility at the same time. That's going to make those lower legs feel significantly better. Okay, so we just hit the feet and the ankles. And next, let's move on to the knees. And this is an area, you guys, that I have a lot of empathy for. Like I said in the beginning of this, masterclass, I've had 5 knee surgeries, okay? So I know what it's like to struggle with knee pain. I know what it's like to feel deeply frustrated by having a lower body that doesn't feel good. And it can be quite a ride. And so I just want you to give yourself a lot of patience and grace if you have lower body pain, but also don't give up on yourself. Be consistent. And remember that when you show up to do movements and workouts from the place of self-care, right? Saying to yourself, whoa, my body hurts. I should go care for my body because I want to feel good, because I deserve to feel good. That gives you so much more intrinsic motivation, which ultimately helps you be more consistent in the long run, okay? So be patient with yourself, be patient with the process, but no, this is not a life sentence. You don't have to live with pain in your lower body. You can gain strength and flexibility. You can improve your balance and coordination, and all of those things put together will make your body feel good again. And that's what we're all about at WeShape, remember? To teach you how to move your body better so you feel better in your body. All right, so with knees, let's talk about the 3 keys to healthy knees. And this is going to be super important for you to remember. So key number 1, this is probably the most important key that most people do wrong. It's to make sure that your knees are going the same direction as your toes, right? So I'm going to stand up and do a sit to stand, go from sit to standing. I'm going to show you what most people do wrong, okay? Most people do this wrong. They stand up and their knees cave in like this, and they stand up like that, okay? And anytime they sit down, their knees cave in like this, and then they fall down like this, right? So if you find yourself standing up from a chair and your knees are caving in like this, you are putting a lot of pressure on your knees. Let me explain why, all right? So I got my little knee model right here. The knee is a hinge joint. It's supposed to go forward and backward, forward and backward. What happens when we cave our knees in is this. It goes backwards, but it also twists and grinds to the side. When we do that, we're pulling on these ligaments, we're grinding on our meniscus, we're causing potential aches, pains, and injuries that aren't necessary. And so making sure your knees go over your toes is one of the most important things that you can do in any lower body movement, especially when you go from sitting to a standing position. So the way I like to think about it is this. I go from a sitting position to a standing position. I look down. I make sure that my thigh bone's going right over my feet on both sides. I can use my hands on my knees for support and also to make sure I feel that inward wobble if needed. I bow forward from the hips. I don't round my back forward. I just bring my belly button towards my thighs and I drive into my heels and I make sure those knees are going over the toes. That doesn't necessarily mean they're straight forward like this. For a lot of people with knee pain, it means a little bit of a wider stance and a little bit of pushing the knees out so that they go the same direction as the toes. So that's rule number one. Make sure the knees go the same direction as your toes. This applies to walking, running, going up and down stairs, lunging, squatting, hip hinging, anything, okay? So this is really important. Rule number two, if you have knee pain, there's a decent chance that you've over-prioritized using your quad muscles and hinging through the knees rather than through the hips. So what does that mean? Oftentimes when people stand up from a chair, they're going to put the weight on the front of their feet, right? And they're going to bring their knees over their toes, and they're going to do this, and they're going to stand up like this. And when we come forward through our knees, if I go to squat and the first thing I do is this, okay? I'm asking my knees to take the pressure of this movement. But if I take my butt and I push it back like this, and my knees remain more vertical, I'm teaching my hips to take the brunt of the movement, okay? And this is really important. You see a lot of people talking about, making sure to strengthen this knees over toes range of motion. That is important. But first, you have to learn how to prioritize moving through the hip. And then you can learn how to prioritize moving through the knee. And most people have that backwards. So when we go to stand up from a chair, instead of putting the weight on our toes and bringing our knees forward and standing up with a more upright torso, we want to do this. We want to plant the heels. You can even lift your toes if you want to remind yourself that this is primarily a heel movement. Knees are going the same direction as your toes. Bow forward from the hips, so belly button goes towards the thighs. You can use your hands for support if you need to, or not if you don't want to. Press the heels into the ground, and you're going to see how I'm hinging through the hip. So this motion is not a knee extension like this. It's a hip extension like this. And these muscles here, glutes, the hamstrings, they're so much stronger than the other muscles that are surrounding your knee. And so we want to learn how to hinge to the hip and not necessarily hinge to the knee, okay? And so the last piece of this is we talked about weight distribution on the feet. We talked about knees going the same direction as your toes. And now I want to revisit what I just said at the end of there, which is hinging through the hip, okay? So knees are going the same direction as toes, putting the weight distribution on my heels. And then how do we learn how to hinge through the hip, okay? We start by pushing our butt backwards, okay? So the best way for people to practice this is this. Imagine there was somebody standing behind you and you wanted to knock them over, right? And you needed to do it like this, boom, and you push your butt back like that. That's how I want you to initiate any sort of sit to stand squat motion. Push the butt backwards, and that automatically puts the weight on the heels. Now look down. Are my knees going the same direction as my toes? Yes. Now keep that motion going backwards as you sit down in the chair, and then reverse the motion as you stand up. And that's how we start to learn how to hinge through the hips. When we take the pressure off the knees by hinging through the hips, when we put the pressure on the heels, which also aids with hinging through the hips, and when we make sure the knees are going the same direction as your toes, your knees will feel so much better. So for everybody out there who has knee pain, start by treating these rules as something you want to practice every time you stand up from a chair. So every time you stand up from a chair, just pause, weight on the heels, knees over toes, hinge through the hips, stand up from the chair, right? Every time you go to sit down, same thing. Butt goes back, knees over toes, weight in the heels, sit down in the chair, okay? You sit down and stand up a lot of times throughout the day. And so treat this as an opportunity to practice proper movement, because when you move your body better, you feel better in your body. I know you guys hear me say that a lot, but it's so important because it's the theme of so much of the stuff that we do at WeShape, okay? So now that you know the 3 keys to healthy knees, let's talk about range of motion. Now, if you've ever had knee surgery, then this can be a serious issue, all right? You can have knee surgery, knee replacement surgery, and then, months go by and you lose range of motion. And when you lose range of motion in a joint like your knee, all of a sudden, you have to compensate through other joints in the body, which can cause pain in those joints as well. So let me take a sip of water, and I'll describe to you what I mean by that. If I lose the ability to flex my knee fully, like bring my heel as close to my butt as possible, right? What that'll mean is, let's pretend I go to pick something up off the ground. I come down like this, and all of a sudden, I have no flexibility here, I have no flexibility here, and then all of a sudden, how do I get to the ground? Well, I got to move through my back, okay? So when we restrict range of motion in our lower body, especially through the knees, the hip flexors, and the hamstrings, and we'll get to those in a sec, then you end up moving through other areas of your body, like your spine, which can cause lower back pain. It's actually one of the reasons why people have lower back pain as well. So if you have an issue with being able to bend your knee fully, all right? So that means I'm down here like this, and I'm trying to bring my body as close to my knee as possible and bring the knee over the toes. Then what we want to do is something we call gapping the knee, okay? Now, again, this is something you want to try out for yourself and see if it feels good. But for me, having had 4 knee surgeries on this knee, sometimes I wake up and I'm really stiff in the morning. And gapping the knee like this can feel incredibly good at creating that space so that I can have greater range of motion in my knee joint. So what you're gonna do is this: come to a kneeling position like this. Feel free to do it in your bed or somewhere soft. I don't want your kneecap on the ground behind you causing any pain, all right? Take a towel, nice big towel, roll it behind your knee like this and pull up in front. And then what you're gonna do is just bring your body weight over it. And what you'll notice is as your body weight comes down on this section of your knee, it's going to pry the joint open a little bit. Okay, so instead of it being closed, it's going to create space inside the joint. And just go back and forth, creating space inside the joint like this. Okay, that helps create space inside the joint. What you'll find is if before you were like, oh, I can't go past there, afterwards you might be like, whoa, I created significant more range of motion. Now, another way to do this for people who can't kneel is just lay down on your back. Same thing. Bring the towel up underneath your back like this. And then you can bring that foot down. And then you can even bring this foot on top of it if you need to, and just go back and forth and try to gap the knee that way, creating that range of motion. So you're just trying to feel like there's a little bit of pressure behind the knee, again, creating space in the knee joint, which can often create that extra range of motion that you need. So you can start with this move in the morning to kind of loosen up your knee, start to make it feel a little bit better as you create that extra range of motion. Now from there, we want to start building the ability to bring ourselves into the bottom of a squat. One of the most functional things that we can start to work towards is this ability to squat fully and relax in the bottom of a squat, because it's a sign of fully functional knees. Now, I know for a lot of people watching this, you're probably thinking to yourself, that will never happen. And while that may be true for you, or maybe it won't, maybe you could actually drop down in the squat. I've seen a lot of people gain significant range of motion by doing these movements. But maybe you won't. But by not practicing at all, it will get tighter and tighter and tighter over the years. And you'll have more and more aches, pains, and injuries, weakness, tightness, etc. So it's not a matter of whether you can get all the way down. It's a matter of whether you're making progress towards feeling better in your body, towards restoring range of motion in your body, towards caring for your body, or if you're just allowing your body to fall apart. But I'm going to be honest with you. This is our one body, right? This is our one body that we all live in. So take care of it. So important to take care of it, all right? So this movement you can do in bed. I really recommend you do this one in bed, but you're going to come to a quadruped position, so on all fours like this. And you're going to bring your knees out kind of wide, whatever feels comfortable to you. You can play around with the position here. And then you have your toes pointed straight like this. And by the way, if you have ankle issues or anything like that, you can just take your feet to the edge of the bed and let your ankles just dangle naturally like that. So that don't have to worry about the ankles, okay? So from here, you can either do it on your hands or on your elbows. I like to do it on my elbows, but play around with both positions. You want to make sure your back's nice and flat, okay? So in this position, we want to just go forward a little bit, and then we want to drop our butt towards our heels and let the hips open while maintaining a nice flat back. And just go back and forth like this, okay? And we're just trying to slowly go a little bit lower each time without doing this, okay? This is what we want to avoid, is the butt rounding and the back rounding like this. So we're trying to create that little bit of an arch in the lower back, okay? Now, a fun way to practice this, I don't have a regular water bottle, but I have a bottle of lotion right here, so I'm going to show you how to do it, is you can tell your partner, your spouse, your friend, whoever you're with, right? Put something on that lower back, okay? And then as you come down, go, and then you'll start to feel it want to roll, and you'll know, oh, that's probably the peak of my range of motion, and come back up. You also might tip your hips from side to side and might figure out that you're imbalanced. And so that's another way to notice when you're imbalanced is by having something on your back that could roll off or slide off from side to side, okay? So you can practice that as a way of giving you some proprioceptive feeling feedback on this movement. Now, if this movement feels pretty good for you, you can get your hips pretty far down. You're not tucking your tailbone like this. Your back's relatively flat as you come down. Well, then the next movement I want to work on for your knees is dropping into the bottom of a squat, all right? Now, simply resting in the bottom of a squat can be one of the most powerful things for opening up your hips, your ankles, your lower back, and your knees. But again, I don't want you to go too far too fast, because oftentimes people will get really like tight in these positions. It'll be hard to get out of them. So start somewhere where you feel comfortable. and work your way up over time, all right? So my favorite way to do this is this. If you need to, you can put a couple cushions on the ground, but you start on a chair. You can put some cushions on the ground if you need to, and you can use those as support for you to relax into this position a little bit more. Or you can use your arm support behind you. So let's pretend I have cushions. I would just come out to the edge of the chair. I would sit on those cushions, and I would try to relax right here. And as my mobility started to open up, I'd shift my hips a little bit from side to side. I'd shift my knees, my ankles from side to side. I try to feel that range of motion, try to get a little bit deeper. Maybe I try to bow forward more from the hips, right? But what we want to do is just kind of pry the hips out and slowly work our way down, right? And one of the things that's really helpful when we're creating mobility like this, especially when we're taking a long time to do it, is your breathing pattern, okay? So the way I like to think about the breathing pattern is this: deep into the belly, like almost like you're trying to breathe into the pelvis. Down into there. Hold a little bit of tension, almost like you're trying to stand up from a squat. So you feel your legs working a little bit. And then as you exhale, relax all that tension and imagine that your tailbone is just being pulled down to the ground. So big breath in, a little bit of tightness, hold for a second, and then just open the hips, come down. Now, if you can start to, over time, you'll start to be able to bring your arms in front of you and hold this position. Then you can use your elbows to drive your knees out as you move from side to side. You can put your hands on your ankles and you can open your knees like this, right? We talked about gapping the knee. One of the things I sometimes do is I'll take my forearm and I'll put it between the knee and the bottom of the squat, and I'll kind of do this to create a little bit of space and gap the knee. So I know a lot of this is pretty advanced, and that's totally fine. I just want to show you kind of the opportunities of what you can do as you start to create more range of motion. But starting out, it could just be this. It could just be like, oh, I'm just opening my hips in a chair and I'm holding this for a minute or two, and then I'm relaxing, right? That's totally fine. But the point of this all is we can't just neglect restoring range of motion to our knees. We want to practice restoring range of motion to our knees and gapping the knee using those two methods I showed you, doing the kneeling squat stretch where we're really building that hip mobility and the ability to create range of motion in the knees, and then doing a basic squat stretch like this can be incredibly helpful for you. All right, there's other ways to do this too. If you want to, you can grab onto the kitchen sink and you could squat down and using that for support. Again, you can sit on objects and slowly lower the height of those objects to try and create more mobility inside the knees and the hips and the ankles. The point of this is, though, don't avoid ranges of motion just because they're challenging. You should be actually working on ranges of motion that are challenging, because when they challenge your body through flexibility, through strength, through coordination, through balance, that's what ultimately will help your body feel significantly better, okay? All right, let's talk about the tibs, all right? We already touched on this a little bit, but I didn't mention it very much. So there's a movement that we want to do that's called the tib curl. We already did it a little bit, so you can do this in various different ways, right? But this muscle right here on the front sides of your shins is called the tibialis anterior right here. This muscle and your quad muscles are primarily responsible for deceleration of motion. So what does that mean, okay? So deceleration of motion means this. If I'm walking forward and I go to stop, boom, like this, that stopping is these muscles creating tension to slow the movement forward down. So if I'm running and I go to stop, boom, I'm using my tibs, I'm using my quads. If I'm walking and I go to stop, tibs and quads. If I'm going downstairs and I want to stop, tibs and quads, right? So, and these are really common ways that people end up hurting themselves and they cause knee pain, stopping quickly, going downstairs, etc. So we want to work on our tibs and quads. And so first, I'm going to show you a move called the tib curl. Fantastic move to strengthen those muscles, right? And as a beginner variation, you can start by just being on the edge of a chair like this. And all you're going to do is straighten your legs, and you're going to point your toes down like this, and then you're going to lift your toes to your nose until you feel these muscles on the front sides of your shin fire. And then point the toes down, lift the toes to the nose, okay? And you're just going to do this, focusing not so much on the pointing. Like, I don't want you to feel your calves pumped like this, like we did with the calf rocks as much. I really want you to focus on the toes to the nose part, right? You can bring your hands behind you and lift your chest if you want to for better posture and good support. But just doing this where you're really focusing on lifting the toes to the nose on every single rep and doing it for anywhere between 30 to 90 seconds to create that nice pump in the fronts of the shins, okay? This is a fantastic move that you can do to really start to strengthen these muscles. And when these muscles get strong and active, again, they help decelerate motion and they make you feel significantly better. Now, another way to do this is you can do it from a standing position, right? Do we have a camera on the wall? Yeah, sort of. Okay, well, we're gonna go on the wall. So you can do it from a wall right here on a standing position. Okay, it's kind of bad lighting, but I'm gonna show you real quick over here. So you can do it on the wall with 2 feet, where you lift your toes to your nose like this. That's gonna create strength in the tib curls as well. And if you're really strong over time, you can shift your weight to 1 foot, and you can do the tib curls on 1 foot like this. As you can see, I'm struggling to do that here because it's actually an incredibly difficult movement. So Again, you can do them from a chair, you can do them against a wall with 2 feet, and you can do them against a wall with 1 foot. Sorry if that little video there was a shoddy one. We were just quickly grabbing a cell phone camera and linking it up to the computer for this one. So that's how you activate your tibs. We want to work those tib muscles because those are the muscles that we want to strengthen if we want to help people decelerate motion. Now, next is the quads, okay? Oh my goodness, the quads are a big one, you guys. A lot of people end up injuring their knees and their quads turn off. And that means we lose our mind-muscle connection to our quads. And when we lose our mind-muscle connection to our quads, guess what happens? All of a sudden, we don't know how to support our knees anymore, right? So we try to do it through our hamstrings, through our hips, through our lower back, through our core, through our ankles, etc. But we need to reactivate those quads. So this is a really important drill for building solid mind-muscle connection. It's my favorite quad activation drill I've ever learned in my entire life. And I think it's something you should practice every single day if you feel like your quads are not doing their job of protecting your knee and strengthening around the knee. So it's going to look like this. You're going to come to a kneeling position. And again, should be like a really soft surface. You can do this on your mattress in bed, totally fine, you know, next to the headboard if you need support for balance. Like, do it in a place that's really comfortable. None of this should be pressure on your kneecap, okay? Now from there, if you're in this kneeling position like this, you're gonna wanna swing that back leg to almost like a 90-degree angle. So now I've got like a 90-degree angle between my front thigh and my back shin right here, okay? Then I'm gonna kind of turn about halfway between those two, 45 degrees. And then I'm gonna slowly come down towards my back heel and then extend the hips back up. Now here's the key here. This back foot right here, I'm pushing this back foot, the top of the foot, into the ground. So the moment I'm here, I push it into the ground, and immediately you should feel your quads start to shake and fire, okay? So I'm here, my quad's shaking and firing already. Now let the butt come back towards the heel, slowly. Oh, it gets harder, the quad's shaking more. And then extend the hip, squeeze the glute, push the toe into the ground, and extend the hip. And all you're gonna do is just go back and forth like this. Again, if you need something for your hands for support, that's fine. But you're just going back and forth, trying to get more range of motion, eventually trying to work your way down as low as you possibly can and extending back up through that quad muscle and through the hip muscle. So we're learning 2 things here. We're learning how do we activate this quad as we go up and down, creating more quad strength, and then how do we extend the knee and extend the hip at the same time, using all the musculature of the hip and the quad here to create that extension that we want from things like squatting, lunging, running, etc. So with this particular movement, you can practice it, again, every single day. Why I keep saying every single day for a lot of these movements, by the way, is that we're talking about neurological change. We're talking about doing things repetitively so that way you regain range of motion where things are tight. That way you regain strength or access to muscles where you didn't have access before. And when you do this consistently, you can make significant progress really quickly. So again, in the beginning of this, I told you, don't do everything that I mentioned here. Pick 2 or 3 things that you feel are most applicable to you. Do them every single day for the next 2 weeks, okay? And I promise it will absolutely transform the way your body feels, because when you're consistent with things like this, they transform quickly. And when your movement patterns change, what happens? When you move your body better, what happens when you move your body better? You feel better in your body. Thank you, guys. Yeah, so that's the whole point of this, all right? Okay. Let's go on to the hips, you guys. We're going to do the 3 best hip stretches. I'm going to start by showing this one in a chair, okay? And then I really want to get to the lower back because I know that's probably the main issue that people are here for, okay? So with the hips, so I want to say something real quick is that a lot of what we do with the lower back is also related to the hips. So the hips is going to be a little bit shorter of a section here, despite the fact that they are a complicated joint. One of the main things that I noticed that people have issues with in their hips is their ability to have internal and external rotation of the hip. Okay, so probably the first move I like to start people out with their hips is what's called the hip 90-90, and you can do it from a chair to start. So I'm going to show you the chair version. All you're going to do is sit in a chair with a nice wide stance like this. You're going to drop this knee down like this and this knee to the outside, okay? And then you're going to rotate the other side. You're going to drop that knee down to this and that knee to the outside. So this one from the chair, you're going to focus a lot more on this internal rotation. You're probably going to feel a lot more stretch in the top of the hip, on the inside of the hip as you drop this knee down, and not as much stretch out here. But you're just going to try to build that fluidity, that smoothness as you move from side to side. Now, from there, you can move to lower and lower surfaces as you do this, which is going to make the movement a little bit more challenging, right? So I'm going to just jump down to the floor, but if you need to, you can sit on an ottoman, on a couple cushions, whatever you need to feel comfortable. But the same thing applies here. Feet are a little bit wide, toes slightly turned outward. We have our hands behind us for support, and we're going to rotate the knees to the inside and the outside, and then we're going to rotate the knees to the inside and the outside. We're just going to move back and forth through those 2 ranges of motion, okay? And remember, the further back you lean on this, the easier this will be. The more you're able to be upright and pointed towards this leg, the more you'll feel this stretch, okay? And eventually, we wanna be able to move from hip 90-90 to hip 90-90 with our hands out in front of us, which tells us we've got pretty good internal and external rotation of the hips. So just like everything, you can practice this motion whenever your hips feel tight, but just as a great mobility drill to loosen up the internal and external rotation of the hips to make the hips feel significantly better, okay? Now, the next movement I wanna focus on is stretching these adductors right here on the insides of the thighs. For a lot of people, those muscles can end up being really, really tight, okay? And so you can do this again by sitting on higher objects like a cushion or on top of a chair, but essentially a straddle stretch is very simple. It's bringing your legs to the outside as far as you can, feel comfortable, right? Nice tall posture. And then the way I like to kind of move in through this movement is I kind of bring my belly button towards the ground and back up. And just little bow movements like this, nothing big, just back and forth, right? And you can play with your ankles too if your knees feel tight. You can pump your ankles a few times. That's sometimes helpful. Just going back and forth like that. And you can do the stretch just like all the others, 30 to 90 seconds, loosen up the joints. You should feel the stretch real deeply through here, right? And you can also play around with the stretch by going from side to side. You know, oh, I'm going to stretch this hamstring out a little more. I'm going to stretch this hamstring out a little bit more. Come back to the middle, move through the middle again, right? So just working in this middle splits right here is a great way to stretch the adductors and make the hips feel significantly better, okay? So stretch number 1 was hip 90-90. Stretch number 2 was this middle splits, or they call it the straddle stretch, right? And again, if you need to, you can do the straddle stretch in a seated position. So if you're real tight, you know, coming right here, you can even have the knees bent a little bit and just pushing the knees out with your hands. And if you feel that stretch on the insides of your groin right here, then you're still doing a straddle stretch. We just want to stretch these muscles, create more range of motion for our legs to open themselves outward so that we can start to do more movements more freely and have our bodies feel significantly better. Now, the last one is going to be a hip external rotation, but really we're trying to focus on the glutes. We're trying to loosen up this side of the body, like right around here, around the hip capsule. And so for this one, you can cross the ankle over the knee like this, and then you turn your body towards that ankle, and then you bow your chest towards that ankle. So for a lot of people, this might be too much. You can straighten this bottom leg a little bit more. That makes it easier, okay? So the further your foot is away from you on the bottom, the easier this will be. The more it is towards you, the harder this will be. And same thing with your chest. This is easier leaning back. This becomes a lot harder leaning your body forward, okay? And just stick to the breathing pattern that we talked about. Just taking a big breath in, create a little tension, and then let all that tension go, and just move your body towards your ankle, okay? And really, this one should feel fantastic, stretching the outside of the hip through the glute. It's such a wonderful stretch, and it can make your hips feel significantly better. So give this one a shot. If you like it, do it every day, do it consistently, and it's gonna really help you loosen up your hips, all right? So those are my 3 favorite hip stretches that are kind of loosening up this lateral and rotational aspects of your hips. And we'll get to some other hip stretches here when we talk about lower back, but the next step I wanna talk about with hips is your glutes, okay? One of the common problems for people having hip pain, for people not being able to, you know, run up a flight of stairs, for people, you know, having lower back pain, et cetera, is not having good glute strength, okay? So we're gonna focus on how do you activate the glutes. And I'm gonna show you my favorite move today. It's called the prone glute activation. So you're gonna start by laying face down like this, again, on the bed, whatever, it's just wherever you feel 100% comfortable. You can put a pillow in front of you, you can put your forehead on your hands if you need to, whatever feels comfortable. From there, you're gonna curl your heels up towards the sky like this, okay? And all you're gonna do is try to lift your knee off the ground about 1/2 inch. But first thing you're gonna do is this, push the pelvis into the ground. So you're gonna push the pelvis in the ground and then lift the knee like a 1/2 inch. And when you do that, what you should feel is this muscle right here firing like crazy. Hold it for a few seconds until you feel a little bit of a burn and relax. Alternate sides, push the pelvis down, lift the knee up. Oh, feel that glute burn, and then relax, okay? Push the pelvis down on the ground, lift that knee up, feel that burn, and then relax, okay? Now, if you're new to glute activation, practice this one and try to really build that mind-muscle connection with what it feels like to fire your glutes. When you feel the glutes squeezing and you can start to squeeze your glute muscles, like I can squeeze my glute muscle right here, like anytime I want. When you've rebuilt that mind-muscle connection, now you have access to that muscle. And you can do things like lunge and squat and go upstairs in a way that feels more pain-free because you have the strongest muscle in your lower body fully active, okay? Now, once you're able to activate your glutes, and again, the way you know you're able to do this is, can you squeeze your glutes while you're just laying here without lifting your legs or anything? If you can already do that, then fantastic. Flip over, and I'll show you my favorite move. It's called the glute bridge, All right, but there's a few things that people do wrong with the glute bridge. I'm gonna pay attention to these form cues because they're gonna make a big difference on your glute bridge, okay? First, a lot of people when they do a glute bridge, they put their palms down like this. But when I put my palms down, I roll my shoulders forward. When I roll my shoulders forward, I make my posture worse. So first thing we do with the glute bridge, palms toward the sky, fingertips away from the ears. That's gonna help us work our posture because we have good posture in this position, okay? Second thing people do wrong is they push up on their toes like this. When we push up on our toes, we force the quads to activate. So instead of pushing up on our toes, what do? We lift our toes to our nose, and then we push into our heels as we do this, okay? And now for some people, the third thing that I see people doing wrong is they lift up and they extend through the spine. You can kind of see how my back is arched right here. See my back's like really arched backwards. That sometimes can put a lot of pressure on the lower back. So instead of doing that, palms toward the sky, away from your ears, right? Toes to the nose. And then as you lift, squeeze your glutes just like you practiced, tuck your pelvis and lift up as much as you can, but your spine will still be neutral. You're not arching like this, right? Where your back's arched. You're squeezing your glutes and tucking your pelvis, which is protecting your lower back. So practicing the glute bridge, slow and controlled, making sure that your palms are toward the sky, your toes are towards your nose, and you're squeezing your glutes can be a fantastic move that you can put into your workouts. Or you can just practice, like I said, every day. You can even do this one less, maybe 3 days a week, working up to the place where you can do 3 rounds of minute to 90 seconds, right? That's a fantastic goal to try and hit when it comes to the glute bridge. And if you can build strong glutes, it's going to help support the rest of your body because really strong glutes help with the hips. It's such an amazing thing to have access to if you want to be able to do amazing stuff with your lower body and feel good again in your lower body, okay? So we've gotten through the feet and ankles, the knees, the hips, and now we're on to the big daddy, the lower back. Now, this is the #1 injury complaint that we get. This is the #1 injury complaint, I believe, in the world is lower back pain, okay? So first what I'm gonna talk about is the 2 common causes of lower back pain, and then we're gonna go over how to fix them, how to activate your core, and then we're also gonna talk about the #1 way that people end up injuring themselves and just giving you some form cues around that to make sure that you know how to do these moves properly, okay? And then after that, don't forget, I'm gonna go over my 2 favorite moves for the lower body, and I'm gonna show you guys a progression for each one of these moves, meaning I'll show you, I don't know, maybe 4, 5, 6 different progressions. You're gonna pick one that you feel like is the right fit for you, and you can do that in a workout 3 days a week along with the other one to start rebuilding that lower body strength, okay? So let me take a sip of water, and let's talk about lower back pain and why you might have it. Okay, so there are 2 common causes of lower back pain. #1 is what's called kyphosis, okay? Kyphosis is where we have a rounded upper back and our lower back is tilted like this, okay? We walk around like this, and when we have a rounded upper back like this, our body's pulling us forward. It's putting more pressure on the nerves, on the muscles, and our lower back, and we can end up with lower back pain, okay? And we also can end up with upper back pain. We can end up with a hunchback over time, right? It's not what we want to do. So that's kyphosis. Lordosis, also known as an anterior pelvic tilt, is this. It's where you have a little bit of a sway back. So your butt's sticking out a little bit more. And you're walking around like this. And again, when your pelvis is like this, you're putting a lot more pressure and bend on your lower spine, which can pinch on the nerves, can cause fatigue to the muscles, and can end up with SI joint pain, things like that. So why is this happening to us, okay? There's 2 things that are commonly happening here. When I have kyphosis, it can often be caused by tight hamstrings. So if my hamstrings, these are the muscles on the back sides of my legs here, if those are tight, they're gonna pull my pelvis like this. And if my pelvis, see, watch my upper body. If I just tilt my pelvis, my upper body comes forward with it. My head comes out forward like this often, and we end up in this posture, okay? So how do we get the pelvis in the right position? Well, we bring the pelvis into the right position by stretching the hamstrings, and then it allows our posture to restore itself. And conversely, if I have lordosis and my butt's sticking out like this, and I'm shorter and I've still got this pinch here, what do? Well, it's these muscles here, the hip flexors on the front of the body. They're tight. And so we got to stretch the hip flexors, and then what happens? Whoop, our body goes back into alignment again. Okay, so likely if you have lower back pain, you're struggling from one of those 2 things, either this kyphotic posture or this lordotic posture, all right? So first, I want to touch on the kyphotic posture, and I'm going to talk about how to stretch your hamstrings to make them feel significantly better. So if you have kyphotic posture, the #1 thing I recommend is for people to stretch their hamstrings every single day. I'm going to show you my favorite drill. I've showed this drill like 1,000 times, but it's absolutely fantastic for hamstrings. So This is a good one you can anchor to getting into bed and waking up from bed, okay? So when you get into bed at night, I want you to put a towel next to your bed or a yoga strap, a belt, whatever you need, right? And you're gonna take this towel and you're gonna put it over the ball of your foot. That's important, not the arch of your foot, the ball of your foot, kind of by the toes, okay? Then you're gonna just drop the other leg and you're gonna pull your toes to your nose until you feel a stretch going from your calf all the way into your hamstring, and you're gonna let your whole back stay nice and flat. Now, this is important because oftentimes when people stretch their hamstrings, they do this. They go and they round their back. You think that this is going to help your kyphotic posture? I don't think so, right? This is going to make it worse, okay? So we're going to keep the back neutral and flat as we stretch the hamstring. Just like before, we're going to take a big breath in, and then we exhale. Try to create more range of motion. And we can hold this for 30 to 90 seconds on the left side, switch, 30 to 90 seconds on the right side. And ideally, you do this every single day before you get out of bed and every single day before you go to sleep. Now, what's magical about this is if you do this in bed before getting out and before going to bed, you're probably going to fall asleep easier because your body feels a lot better when you have loose muscles, especially when these are the tight muscles of your lower body. And then when you get out of bed, you're going to be like, wow, I got out of bed and I was moving around a lot better. My body feels so much better just by doing a simple stretch first thing in the morning. Okay. So I highly recommend doing a hamstring stretch if you have this type of kyphotic posture where your hamstrings are pulling your pelvis into a posterior pelvic tilt, putting pressure on your lower back. If you have the opposite issue, where you have the lordotic posture or the anterior pelvic tilt where your pelvis is tilted forward like this, well then we're going to focus on stretching the hip flexors, okay? These are the muscles that go inside the hip, all the way across the hip and into the core, all right? So for this move, you can start in a kneeling position, again, making sure that something soft is underneath your knee, and then you're gonna bring your hips forward like this, and you're gonna start to work your pelvis towards your front heel. Now, this is really important. A lot of people, when they do this, they're going to arch their lower back. So as they come forward, they're gonna stick their butt out like this. Here, let me move my elbows so you can see. So my back's flat here. If I come forward, see how I arch my lower back like this? That's not me stretching my hip flexor. That's me moving through my lower back. So we start out like this. We tilt the pelvis and we squeeze the glute. Now that stays in the same position as we come forward and we feel that stretch through the hip flexor. And then from there, we squeeze the glutes more, drop towards that front heel. We try to really feel that hip flexor stretch right here. Hold this for 30 to 90 seconds on the right, 30 to 90 seconds on the left. And it's gonna be a fantastic way for you to stretch your hip flexors. You can also do this one in bed, before going to bed and before getting out of bed, and you'll have a nice soft cushion under your knees for support as well. Now, one more thing on this hip flexor stretch. Some people just can't kneel. It's just not going to happen. And so another way to do this hip flexor stretch is in a standing position, and you can use a chair or a wall for support as well. But just coming into a lunge position like this, again, making sure your hips are straight forward, making sure you squeeze your glutes and tuck your pelvis, and then dropping your hips towards that front heel, thinking about length through here, length, length, length. You'll feel that hip flexor stretch right here. Now, what I like about the standing hip flexor stretch is I can go to the bank and stretch my hip flexors while I'm waiting in line. I can go to the grocery store and stretch my hip flexors while I'm waiting in line. Remember this concept I shared with you earlier of movement snacks. When you start to learn movements that make your body feel better and you can do them throughout the day, well, guess what? Your body starts to feel so much better because you're repatterning your movement consistently over and over and over again. So if you have tight hip flexors, try to get this into your routine where you're just kind of stretching your hip flexors for even just 10 seconds while you're out and about in your day. The more you take care of your body, the more your body will take care of you. Okay. Now, this next thing for the lower back I want to talk about is your core. All right. Your core is really important for the lower back. And this move is called the elevator. Now, a lot of people get confused about the elevator because it feels like it's not really doing much. But here's the deal. If you take your fingers like this and you put them between your belly button and your hip right here, and you push into your belly button like this, you're pushing on this fleshy tissue. What we want to focus on is this. Can I push my fingers out? Take a big breath in, push my fingers out. That's me creating intra-abdominal pressure and properly firing the core. So if you've heard this thing where people say, suck your belly button in towards your spine to strengthen your core. Yes, that does activate some deep core muscles like the transverse abdominis, but it doesn't help create rigidity of the spine from the pelvis all the way up to the upper spine, which is what we really want a proper core activation to do. If we activate rigidity of the spine from the pelvis all the way up to the upper spine, well, then guess what? The likelihood of injuring our lower back goes down, our strength goes up, our ability to do basically everything in our daily life becomes easier and easier because we learn how to activate our core properly. So for the elevator, again, you can practice this every day. Fingers between the belly button and the hip, right? Push them in. push them out. And usually at first what will happen is people will say, I have to inhale, and the moment I exhale, the fingers go in. That's fine. This is a neurological exercise teaching how to activate these deep core muscles that you don't have access to. It takes time to learn how to do this and how to do it skillfully. Now, after a while, you can take a big breath in and then take little shallow breaths in and out while maintaining your fingers pushed out, okay? And that's great. That's a good step in the right direction. Then eventually, you can exhale and the fingers stay out. You can walk around and the fingers stay out. And that's what we want to work towards, is being able to hold that stability in the core with this move called the elevator for a full 60 seconds, regardless of what we're doing. So if you have a workout routine, put this in your workout routine before you do any of the movements, and it'll be a consistent reminder to utilize proper core strength before you do any sort of workout, right? You can also practice this anywhere you want. If you ever feel like you have lower back pain or anything like that's flaring up, start working on the elevator. The more you get access to this proper way of activating your core, the less likelihood you will have lower back pain, okay? I got one more thing for you. It's the lower back injury, the number one way people injure their lower back. And I'm going to go over these two best moves here that I think are really fantastic for you. I'll go through these and you can pick a variation for you that you can take home with you at the end of the day. So what is the number one way that people injure their lower back? I'm sure you guys all have a guess, but it's simply this. It's, oh, I dropped something on the ground and I'm going to pick it up and I'm mindlessly moving and I round everything and I have poor form and I come down to pick it up and I go back up, and I pinch the nerves of my lower back, okay? So this has happened to a lot of us. It's happened to me. It's probably happened to most of the people who are watching right now. And so one of the most common things that happens is this. And so what we need to learn how to do is how to move through the hips properly. If we move through the hips properly, as we hinge through the hips, we will eliminate the number one reason that most people end up injuring their lower back in the first place, okay? So this might look like this. Instead of reaching our hands forward through the spine, we want to do the same thing we did with the squat. We want to put the weight on the heels. We want to push the weight back. We want to hinge through the hips. And then we want to bend the knees. And then on the way back up, we want to do the opposite, right? Extend the knees, push through the heels, and stand back tall. This simple motion, we call this motion at WeShape the frog deadlift, right? Is just learning how to hinge through the hips properly, come up and down. Practicing this motion can be a fantastic motion for strengthening this movement. So that way, when you go to pick something off the ground, you don't do it mindlessly. You do it mindfully, okay? You do it mindfully instead of mindlessly. And couple this with the elevator. So keeping that tight core as you come down, keeping that tight core as you come up, exhaling and repeating that process. That can be such a fantastic move for teaching you how to be strong in this common way that people end up injuring their lower back. All right. I really appreciate you guys for sticking around this far. We've already gone over an hour, so I'm so impressed that we have so many people on the live feed right now. Thank you guys for coming. I do want to talk about one more thing, and this is my big gift to you guys, is giving you my two best moves for your lower body, all right? And then we'll probably jump over to some questions, and then we'll wrap this thing tonight. So the two best moves for the lower body, I want to talk about two things that are really important for you. Number one is the ability to squat. Number two is the ability to hip hinge. You've probably heard me hit these themes over and over and over again throughout this video. So first, I want to go over the squat and give you a simple progression. And what all I want you to do is think about which variation feels like the right fit for you, okay? So if you're a complete beginner and you can't even stand up from a chair, then the first variation is this. All you're going to do is push your heels on the ground, squeeze your muscles on your thighs and your glutes, and then relax. That's it. Push your feet in the ground, squeeze them for a second, and then relax. It's called a seated heel push, okay? And your toes are going to come up to your nose, right? So just pushing the heels on the ground and then relaxing. So this is going to be our level one variation for the squat or the sit to stand. Our level two is going to be a supported sit to stand. So like we talked about earlier, weight on the heels, knees over toes, this time hands on the knees, and you're going to bow forward from the hips, press into the arms and stand up slowly, push the butt back, replace the hands on the knees, slowly come down, all right? We're going to inhale before we stand up, hit that elevator, exhale as we come up, inhale as we go down, exhale as we sit down, okay? So this is our second level variation of a sit to stand called a supported sit to stand. Third level is going to be arms out front. Same thing, inhale, weight in the heels, knees over toes, inhale on the way back down. And we're going to do this slow and controlled at first, practicing good movement, all right? Now, the next level is going to be doing this move, but coming up all the way on your toes. So as I come to the top, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to rise onto my toes. And then I'm going to come back down, all right? This will be our fourth level of difficulty, all right? And the final level I want to show you is hopping at the top. So hopping at the top, coming back down, making sure that everything is aligned. You have good form. Knees are over the toes. You're landing soft, right? And this one, woo! This one will work your lower body, work your lungs, and it'll be a functional movement at the same time, which is going to make your body feel a lot stronger and a lot better throughout your daily life, okay? So there are 6 different levels of the sit to stand or the squat that you can choose from to put into a workout to strengthen your lower body and start to feel significantly better. Choose a level that feels comfortable for you, not one that feels like a stretch for you. And then progress to the next level up once you feel like you've really mastered the previous level. Now let's talk about hinging through the hips, okay? This one is going to be called the frog deadlift. And I just showed it kind of to show you how to hinge through the hips and not round your lower back. I'm gonna show you some variations right here. So, sorry, the first variation is gonna be seated. Same thing, feet nice and wide. All you're gonna do is nice tall posture. You're gonna bring your belly button towards your thighs, press your heels on the ground, and back up. That's it. All we're doing is creating range of motion through the hips, through the hamstrings, and learning how to get that elevator active as we hinge through the hips, press through the heels, and come back up. So that's our level 1, okay? Level 2, we're gonna take the chair, we're gonna put it in front of us, and we're gonna use this for support. Nice wide stance, toes turned outward. This is for support. I'm gonna push my butt back. I'm gonna come about halfway down, and then I'm gonna use my arms to extend my hips. That's it, all right? Just a level 2 using support, okay? Once we feel really comfortable with this motion, where we're using the back of the chair, we can come into a level 3 variation of this, which is going to be coming down to touch right below your knees. So you want to touch your shins. So you're going to do this. Come down, hands to shins, back up. All right? Come down, hands to shins, back up. That's level 3. Now, level 4 is just adding range of motion, but without sacrificing form through your back. So if you can't go all the way down to your ankles without doing this, then it's too far. Go back, stretch your hamstrings more, practice level 3 more, work on that for a while. But eventually we want to do this. Come down to the ankles and back up. Ankles and back up. So that's our level 4. Level 5, ground, back up. Ground, back up. And for our level 6, we'll do the same thing as before, add a hop to the top. So ground, and then we'll hop. Ground, and then we'll hop. Ground, and then we'll hop, okay? So these 2 motions are going to practice how to stand up properly and how to hinge to the hips properly. And if you want to put these together into a workout, then there's a simple way to do this. All you have to do is do about 40 seconds of work, followed by 20 seconds of rest on whichever variation you chose of the squat and whichever variation you chose of the frog deadlift. You can do 1 round of the squat, rest for 20 seconds, 1 round of the frog deadlift, rest for 20 seconds. Repeat that 5 times around. That will be a 10-minute workout, and it will work your entire lower body. And if you pay close attention to all the form cues that I've taught you throughout this, and if you add on top of that some of these movement snacks that we discussed along the way to help fix these specific issues amongst your lower body, then you will have a routine that will give you strength, flexibility, balance, and coordination that's going to make your whole lower body feel significantly better. All right. I really hope you guys enjoyed this live feed. And I wanted to talk about one more thing before you go, and then we'll have a little bit of time to take some questions. I see some questions in the feed here. I'm going to spin my board around, and we're going to talk about this. So I hope you enjoyed all this amazing information. We like to give as much as we possibly can at WeShape to make sure that people in our community are actually feeling results from all of our free content. But if you want us to build you a personalized workout plan that is going to do all of this for you, meaning it's going to give you all the cues that I just talked about over and over again, right? Like making sure your knees are going the same direction as your toes, making sure your weight's on your heels, teaching you how to breathe properly, focusing on the elevator in every single workout, doing things like hamstring, hip flexor, hip 90-90s, right? Teaching you how to move your body significantly better, gaining strength, flexibility, balance, and coordination. Well, that's what we do at WeShape. We've developed a software that can create a personalized workout plan for you. Okay, this is a personalized workout plan where every movement is scaled to your level. So those levels we just went through for the squat and for the hip hinge, we have those on every single movement that we have in our program to help you learn how to move your body better, gaining strength, flexibility, balance, and coordination so you feel better in your body. And it's genuinely personalized to you. Now, these workouts can be done from home. You don't need any equipment. All we need is a chair and some space on the floor. All right. And you can do these workouts anytime, anywhere. So they're super convenient. You don't have to join a gym. If you're already a gym member, you can cancel your gym membership, right? These workouts are 30 minutes or less, all right? And we only ask you to do like 2 a week, so less than 1 hour a week to feel significantly different in your body, all right? They have real-time scaling. What does this mean? That's part of the software that we built at WeShape. We spent years building and refining a software to help people feel like I was their personal trainer in their living room, giving them movements and giving you the freedom as you do these workouts to say, this movement feels too hard, and guess what? Right in there in that follow-along workout, it's going to change the movement, and it's going to give you a scaled-down version of that movement that's more appropriate for you. So it's about making sure you have the right movements for you so you can reach your goals and feel better in your body, right? The other thing is we have a supportive community, you guys. We have thousands of people who have become WeShape members, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing, and this community is so supportive. So if you have struggles that you're facing, just know that our community can hold you through that, and they can celebrate your wins too. And last thing we do inside WeShape is we have live coaching. So I'm doing this live call, but I don't get to see people's faces. So if you want to join our community, what you get as a part of that community is you can join our live coaching calls with myself, with Dr. Lisa, with our other amazing coaches, and you'll be able to go face-to-face with myself and Dr. Lisa and our other coaches on a Zoom call where you can ask specific questions about any issues you have with your body, and I'll be able to help you right then, giving you a movement snack, helping you tweak your workouts to help you feel significantly better in your body. All right, now here's a special thing that we're doing for everybody who has attended the Lower Body Fix Masterclass. You've seen this URL down here, right? This WeShape.com/lower. All right, you can go to WeShape.com/lower, or if you're on YouTube and Facebook, you can click the link below, okay? Or above, I think, in Facebook, right? And that's going to take you to a page where you can save 35% off all of our most popular WeShape plans. This is only going to be available for people until the end of the day on Saturday. So make sure you act fast because we only run these sales once every month or so. And so, you know, if you've been enjoying this content, you realize I do need to learn how to move my body better. I want workouts that are going to help heal my body. I want to join a supportive community filled with people who understand that this is all about me learning how to move my body better so I feel better in my body, and also learning how to come from an act of self-care rather than consistently self-judgment. Then guess what? WeShape is going to be a game changer for you. So again, if you want a personalized workout plan from us, you can do it from home, 30 minutes or less, real-time scaling, meaning different levels for every movement in real time, a supportive community, and live coaching with myself, Dr. Lisa, and our other coaches. Make sure you sign up today by going to WeShape.com/lower, or if you're on Facebook or YouTube, click the link below or click the link above. All right, we're gonna do a little Q&A right now. Otherwise, I really hope you guys enjoyed the Lower Body Fix Masterclass. It's been really fun to teach you everything that I've been able to teach you, and I hope that you've gotten something really useful out of this. And again, if you want us to hold you through this and show you how to do these movements the right way, show you how to teach your body to move the right way, giving you consistent cues during your workouts, then please give WeShape a shot. We have so many successful success stories of people changing the way their bodies feel, and I hope you're the next one. All right. Okay, we're going to dive into some questions real quick. We'll do about 10 minutes of questions because we're coming up on hour and 20 minutes. Oh, and my daughters just said hi. Hi, girls. I just want to say hi to them real quick. Oh, are they on Instagram? Hi, girls. Okay, YouTube. My knee crunches when I climb the stairs, but it doesn't hurt. Can you help me with that? Okay, so in the masterclass, I showed you gapping the knee. Gapping the knee is one of the ways that we can create more space in the joint, which can oftentimes reduce the grinding that happens within the joint. Next to that is this whole concept of hinging through the hip. If I'm going up the stairs, right, and I bring my knee forward over my toes like this, and I extend through my knee, see, you even heard my crunchy old knee pop when I just did that, right? So if you bring your knees forward over your toes, you're going to get a lot more grinding and crunching because you're putting more pressure to the knee. If you're going up the stairs and you put your foot down and then you bow through the hips, you bend the knee, and then you extend through the hips to stand up tall, right? That's how we can start to work on creating less pressure on the knee, which is going to create less grinding. Unfortunately, there's likely going to have popping and grinding in there. It doesn't really disappear all that much unless you end up doing things like prolotherapy injections and things like that inside the knee. But learning how to move more effectively through the hip can be an amazing way to help you through that, okay? Okay, from TikTok, I'm a taxi driver who sits 6 to 7 hours a day. My glutes and hamstrings are extremely sore. Any tips? Okay, I got some good tips for you, all right? So if you sit a lot, then we end up often being tight in our hips, our hip flexors, and even our hamstrings sometimes, okay? So if your glutes and hamstrings are extremely sore from sitting all day long, then what I want you to do is this. Take movement snacks throughout the day. One movement snack I showed in this was this glute stretch, external rotation glute stretch. So while you're in your taxi cab, see if you can scoot the chair back, cross your ankle over your knee, or if not, cross it over your shin, whatever you need to do, grab it with your hand and come forward until you feel that glute stretch. Hold it for 30 seconds on the right, hold it for 30 seconds on the left, right? Try to get some movement throughout the day as you're sitting in that taxi cab. If you can, try to stand up and move your body around too, right? So if you're in there 6 or 7 hours a day, is there any opportunity for you to pull over and just move your body a little bit, right? It could be one of my favorite moves for loosening the lower body is bootstrappers, right? Hands on the knees, just come down into a squat and extend through the hips. So you're just kind of loosening the hamstrings, and the hips and the knees. Is a fantastic one you could do, right? Just by stretch them out. And you know, this isn't really lower body stuff, but one of my favorite things to do when you sit a lot, just some simple side bends like this. What a fantastic move for loosening up your entire body. All right. Okay. Hope that helps out. Okay. From YouTube, what do I need to do to strengthen to be able to get up from the ground unassisted without having to crawl to a chair to pull myself up? Hi, B. I'm going to show you guys the proper way to get up off the floor, because I think this is something that nobody really practices. And bear with me because it's a little bit of a complicated movement, but I think it's worthwhile based on this question. A lot of people who want to get up off the floor, they do this, all right? They go, you know, they just kind of scramble their way up, and then they kind of crawl over to a chair, and then they push their hands down, they scramble their way up, right? And we're not really moving mindfully, but we want to make sure our joints are in alignment. We want to make sure we're using the big muscles, the primary movers. We want to make sure we're stabilizing our core as we come up from the ground. And if we practice this consistently, it'll get easier and easier. All right. So here's what I'm going to show you how to do. Instead of trying to just throw your body up like this, the first thing you want to do is this. One leg goes up, one leg goes down. This arm is the opposite arm as leg. So this is my right leg. I'm going to put my left arm to the outside. Then what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to punch that way. I'm going to punch across my body. So I'm going to roll sideways and press up. While I'm rolling, I'm pushing this heel into the ground, all right? So a lot of people can't even get up off their back like this. Push this heel into the ground, punch up, push this elbow into the ground, all right? That's the easiest way to go from a lying position to a seated position, all right? Now from there, what I like to teach people to do is this. You bring this leg in, right? And this leg over. And this puts you in kind of a little bit of a straddle position. So I was here, I'm just gonna go like that, right? Now I'm gonna roll over into a lunge position. Okay, you see how I'm just going from here to here, right? Now from this position, I have some options, all right? I can either put my hands back down on the ground, lift my foot, rock back, and stand up, or I can bring my body into a lunge position, put my hands on my front thigh, tuck my back toe, and stand up from a lunge position right there. Now some of that may be hard for you, and that's fine. You can still use a chair for support, but what I'm hoping for is that you work on those steps where you start by rolling across the body, then you come to a seated position, cross the legs, come to a kneeling position, and then choose the way that you want to start learning how to get up, all right? So I hope that's helpful for you. A lot of people have issues getting up off the floor, so try that out and see if it makes a big difference, okay? Okay. All right, so from YouTube, squat position is a challenge. It always feels like I don't get my hips back far enough. And that's probably right. Most people, when they do the squat, they are hardwired to bring their knees forward. And so they don't end up pushing their butt back. And when that happens, pressure goes on the knees, okay? So I'm gonna show you a cool drill that can help you with this. And I'm gonna pretend like Skelly's my wall because I don't have a good wall right in front of me. That's not a big white wall, but imagine this, all right? If I stand in front of a wall and I get in my squat stance like this, and I try to bring my knees forward and whatnot, and I'm in front of a wall, I can't do it, okay? So one of the best ways to practice pushing your butt back is to stand in front of a wall and do a wall squat or a wall frog deadlift. So you can either do it squat-wise or you can bring your hands in front of you like this. But it's to push the butt back, weight on the heels, and it's to just basically almost trace the wall with your nose. Because in this position, I can't really bring my knees super far forward like that. Putting that wall right in front of you can stop you from bad habits of bringing your knees super far forward as you do this. So that's a really fun way to do it. Another good way to practice this is to consistently think about what I was talking about earlier, which is push the butt back. Like I'm not going to squat until my torso is like facing the ground. All right. So torso's facing the ground. Now I squat. And then I stand the knees. My torso is still facing the ground when I'm almost extended to the knees. Then I stand tall. Right. If we learn to move more effectively like this through the hip, it's going to take pressure off the knees. And it's going to make the knees feel a whole lot better. Okay. I'm going to go 2 more questions, you guys, and then we're going to wrap this thing at 90 minutes. Does that sound good? All right. Okay, YouTube, I have neuropathy all through my toes, feet, ankles, and coming through the knees. Doing toe exercises of the knuckles are next to impossible. Any other suggestions? So I know that there's a lot of things that people have suffered from. You know, on our live calls in WeShape, one of the things that I get to experience is just there's a lot of people in a lot of pain. So first of all, I want to say something. If you feel alone in this, like you're not alone in this. We have so many people in our community who have struggled through like injuries, you know, and car accidents and just all kinds of things that have made their bodies feel a lot worse. But almost all of them, when they're consistent with the workouts, they start to feel better in their bodies. So yeah, you might not be able to do toe knuckle stretches. You might not be able to do these different things, right? But gradually building strength of literally just standing up from a chair, that's going to start working on the strength of the feet. But if you want to get more relief from your feet and you want to work on that range of motion, instead of bringing your whole body weight on there, you can just take your fingers over your toes like this, and you can just curl your toes down, right? And you can just start working that range of motion like this, as long as that feels good. If it doesn't feel good, another thing you can try is taking some lotion again on the top of your foot this time and tracing in between the tendons that come down to the feet. So we're trying to create space in between where the muscles are, in between these toes. So when you push down, you'll feel like a tendon in a bone. You want to trace that line down there and kind of work it to create more space, work it to create more space, work it to create more space all the way down to here, right? So doing more work on that self-care for your feet can also be really helpful in restoring your foot function and making it feel significantly better. So I hope that helps out. Okay, I got another one. With kyphosis, it's hard to lay on my back without a hard with a hard surface. Is it okay to put a rolled towel under the head? Absolutely. It's totally fine to put a pillow, a rolled towel under the head. And it's also okay to not necessarily do this on a hard surface. You can do this in bed. All I want is for you to not be in a horrible, you know, front bended posture position, right? So if you're doing the hamstring stretch we talked about. So doing it in bed with a pillow under your head, that's totally fine. I think the big thing there is just making sure that you're not pulling your pelvis into that rounded position. So trying to create a little bit of arch under the lower back can often be helpful. So what you might try is, you know, lay down on a pillow, then maybe take a towel, roll it up and put it underneath your lower back, just so you have that proprioceptive feedback that you're not supposed to jam your lower back on the ground, and then stretch the hamstring while feeling that lower back lifted ever so slightly so we have that neutral spine position. All right. Some great questions. Thank you guys for asking them. And thank you everybody again for sticking around. I can't believe it's been 90 minutes already. What a crazy amount of time. And thank you so much for like the thousands of people who joined us for this live. We actually had almost 8,000 people sign up for the live and many, many thousand people across all of our social platforms show up for this. So thank you guys again for coming. And remember, if this was a lot of information and you know you need to do something for your body and you've been frustrated with workouts that you feel like just don't work for you, maybe you have too many aches, pains, and injuries, maybe you have too much, you know, tightness or weakness, well, that's what WeShape was built for. It was built to give you a workout that was personalized to you, that you could do from home in 30 minutes or less, that's going to make you feel significantly better in your body. And we're going to focus on all the things we talked about in this masterclass, all the cues, keeping your knees over your toes, making sure you're activating your feet, your core, how to breathe properly, how to move properly through all of your body. Because when you repeatedly expose yourself to these cues and practice movement the way that we teach at WeShape, well, you move your body better and you feel better in your body. All right. So if you want to join us, go to WeShape.com/lower. You can save 35% off all of our most popular WeShape plans for the next few days. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for coming to the Lower Body Fix Masterclass. And hopefully we'll see you in our coaching calls. All right. Bye.